Hello, all. Hopefully, you've read the Imperfect link before you started watching this short little video. But if you haven't, go ahead and pause this video and read through these 4 pages. You may have to do a little bit of, like I said, download this first. And then as you read, you can see that the download was kind of funky. If you download this as a PDF and as you read, you can kind of flip things as you need to. But if you have read this, then continue on with this video. So I wanted to talk a little bit. Normally in class, what we do is we read this out loud and we talk about some of the things that it's discussing in this really unique article. The first thing I want to talk about is something that we know as synesthesia. And that's the scenarios that they're talking about. So synesthesia, if you got to that word and didn't know how to pronounce it, that's how you pronounce it. Synesthesia is kind of the crossing over of senses. Most people have some sort of synesthesia in some spectrum or form. Probably not to the level of seeing ice cream or orange sherbet foam as you kiss your boyfriend or your girlfriend, but to some level. For instance, I have a synesthesia with sneezing. For some reason, when people sneeze, I get goosebumps and I get cringy because I don't like goosebumps. So for some reason, that noise causes a sensation in me that is not normal. It's why that when people sneeze, to be honest, I get really frustrated because it affects me because I get goosebumps. A lot of times in my household, if Mr. Dupree sneezes, I get angry. I'm like, stop it. And of course, he can't stop it. That's nothing he can do. But it's my response, which is an intermixing of my hearing and somehow my sensation of getting goosebumps that intermixes. Some people, it may be as simple as a synesthesia, might be as simple as the scratching of the board down, your fingernails down like a blackboard. For some people, it's chewing on maybe aluminum. Chewing like on a gum wrapper or something like that. So it varies, but usually some people have some sort of form of synesthesia. As I'm talking about each one of these things, I'm giving myself goosebumps, by the way. So that's synesthesia. And these examples are, of course, an extreme of that. The second thing I wanted to talk about, as you read this, hopefully you saw this. If you didn't see this, go ahead and take a second to read the words in the triangle. If you did that and you noticed and you read the little caption up there that says, better look again, it's time to look more carefully, this illustration is a classic example of how the brain makes people perceive what they expect to see rather than what is there. And if you read it right, you actually read Jack in the box versus Jack in the Box. But our brain is tuned sensation-wise to see wholes, gestaltism, to see whole parts. So we don't pay attention that there's a double the in that saying. We'll talk more about that when we do language next semester and why our brain does that. We become such expert readers that we don't necessarily always have to read every single letter and every single word. And of course, that's not very helpful if you have that tendency and you are editing a paper that you may miss something like this simple typo, okay? The last thing I wanted to talk about was on the last page, and let me go ahead and flip this, was they talked about color studies. And one thing that we need to know about color studies is color studies in terms of correlation and feeling have mild correlations. We're talking an R of maybe like positive 0.4 to maybe positive 0.6. But one study that I wanted to take note of was one that was done in the 1990s by the University of Ohio State. Their psychology department had done some color correlational studies. And so they decided to take one of their studies into the university's visitor locker room of the football team. And so what the psychologists did did there was they painted the visitor locker room pink, like a blush pink color. And based upon their studies, what would happen would be that the visitors of Ohio State's stadium would go into that locker room, and because pink gives a feeling of calmness, that they would have basically a disadvantage because they got dressed in a locker room that creates the emotion of calmness. They had based this on the fact that they had done studies with their own athletes where they painted a locker room entirely pink and they did weightlifting exercises. So they had guys that had the week before done, let's say, squats and bench press and had achieved a certain weight that they were able to press or to squat. And then when they came back the following week, the locker room was painted, the workout room was painted pink, and they did not bench press or squat nearly as much weight as they did the week before. And so they took that idea, painted the visitor locker room of the Ohio State visitors locker room pink. And actually what had ended up happening was the NCAA found out about it. And the NCAA said, you can't do that. That's creating an unfair mental advantage for your team to not have their locker room painted pink and the opposing players' locker room painted pink. So just kind of a cool little study, and then trying to do an application that turned out to be unethical, and they had to repaint the pink locker room back to its normal colors for the visitors. So just kind of a really interesting, some studies here about the intermixing of our senses and how things like colors or our two senses can kind of get crosswired and confused and cause some adverse reactions. All right, guys, hope that was helpful. Maybe you got some ideas now for your discussion, and we'll be seeing you soon. Bye.